After the battles of Lexington and Concord, there began a period of time known as the Siege of Boston, in which the redcoats in Boston were trapped in the city by the local militias. Their supplies were running low, and attempts to break out to seize supplies failed. But their real fears were that the hills around Boston were prematurely occupied by the Patriots, for Boston would then be heavily bombarded. They thus decided to take two hills and try to force their way out from there. That then brings us close to the Battle of Bunker Hill. Well, they did call it the Siege of Boston, though because the British had ships while their counterparts did not, they could sail out any time they wanted. Thus, even as it would become a great shame to the redcoats if they really did evacuate, there was no practical danger to Gage and his forces. They were able to craft a plan to drive the Patriots out of the Charleston Peninsula. First, they would have to land by boat, then take two hills named Breed's Hill and Bunker Hill, thus preventing the Patriots to haul their cannon onto them, then driving west to take Cambridge. That would complete the breakout of the redcoats. A month before, on May 25, 1775, three experienced British officers, John Burgoyne, Henry Clinton, and William Howe, arrived with 6,000 reinforcements. These three men would play remarkable roles in the American Revolution. The British were feeling much more confident now, and hammered down their plan to assault the Charleston Peninsula quickly. Yet once again, the colonial intelligence excelled, and thus the Patriots found out about the secret British plan quickly after it was formed. Artemas Ward, commander of the forces besieging Boston, sent Colonel William Prescott and Major Israel Putnam, two distinguished colonial officers, with 1,200 men, to fortify Bunker Hill against the British. It was a midnight march to Bunker Hill, and the operation the two men were about to complete was planned to be quick but secret. Yet once they arrived at Bunker Hill, the commanders of the dispatch force disagreed to where to set up the fortifications. It was finally agreed that ramparts were to be dug at Breed's Hill, which was even closer to Boston, and work was quickly started. It was laid out like this: a center fortification of deep 6-foot trenches and walls, dug in the shape of a square, would have two earthen walls running right and left from it. From the far left end, fencing would be set up crudely, running all the way into the edge of the Mystic River, while another entrenchment would be dug on the right flank, extending to the outskirts of Charleston. The men worked tirelessly over the night, and they made amazing progress, so that they completed this project, that the redcoats could have taken a day in doing, by the time the sun was up and rising. In comparison, the British reacted slowly. Their gunships in the harbor had fired upon Breed's Hill after seeing the colonial preparations, but it was put to an end quickly. Only by morning did the British High Command see the problem, and had the batteries of Boston firing on the Patriots' position. However, this firing was ineffective, and still it took some more time for Howe, Burgoyne, and Clinton to hatch a plan. Clinton argued for a serious approach, so he recommended attacking the Charleston Neck, thus cutting off the Patriots, then attacking directly. However, Howe and Burgoyne overlooked the colonists and decided that the militiamen, whom they had not regarded the force that would be able to fight against their men, would be best dealt with by a direct assault. Howe, being the senior officer, had control of decisions, so it all went his way. He took some more time drafting his men and assembling them into boats to cross the Charleston Peninsula. This gave the colonists time to extend their fortification and place snipers in Charleston. So when the redcoats finally landed at about 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the Patriots were well prepared for the coming battle. Howe then waited for reinforcements. That took some more time, and then he made his assault. It was set out like this. Howe led the main attack against the colonial left flank, where he thought that would be the weakest point, while Pidgeot, one of his senior officers, feigned against the center fortification. This first attack was met by a fierce volley of return fire from the militias, and the British took heavy casualties. Before long, they withered and broke and fled down the hill. But as the colonists thought they had won the battle and were celebrating, the British were reforming to ranks below the hill. Howe was not going to give up without a real fight, and now that he saw he was humiliated in a defeat, his desire to attack grew. Thus, within minutes, the redcoats were coming up the hill once more. This time, however, Pidgeot was to conduct a real attack, while Howe's main force was to assault the rail fence on the left flank. Once again, however, the militias smote the redcoats down with fierce volleys, and this time casualties upon the British were even worse than they had during the first attack. The colonists, however, were able to send the regulars fleeing down the hill before long, nearly without suffering any casualties themselves. Thus, the redcoats were now withstood 2 times, and Howe had learned to be more careful. So when thrice the British marched up the hill, they were replenished with 600 reinforcements from Boston. In comparison, however, the colonists received no reinforcements from the mainland, and they were running low in cartridges. So now the two sides engaged at the top of the hill, and once more militia sent musket fire pouring into the British ranks. But this time the redcoats withstood the blow and marched on to the redoubt with still most of their men remaining. So now the battle became a close fight, and because the British owned more bayonets and pistols, they immediately took the upper hand. Slowly they drove the militias into a steady retreat, and though they failed to reform and fight at Bunker Hill, they successfully kept from being surrounded, which would have resulted in serious casualties. Finally, at around 5 to 6 p.m., the colonists retreated into their fortified positions on the mainland, and the gunfire ceased. The aftermath of the battle was a long period of stalemate, in which there were small skirmishes here and there, but no side got the upper hand. Colonial losses were minimal, and the only remarkable man who was lost was none other than Joseph Warren, who played a considerable role in supporting the rebellion in its early days. Britain, however, suffered terrible casualties from battle, with 226 dead and 828 wounded. Historians to this date are still in dispute regarding the win or loss of the battle, for the British had won the hill, though did not use it quite effectively, as you shall later see, and the militias had lost the hill but inflicted terrible casualties upon the redcoats. But though it might be said that this battle was insignificant due to the British evacuation later on, the majority still believes that the colonists, by the battle, had proved themselves to be a force which could not be underestimated.